I've had an attachment to music for as long as I can remember. I joined the middle school concert band, then the jazz band and marching band in high school. I started making my own songs and beats when I was a teenager, something I still do to this day, and even now, as I write the script, there's music playing in the background. That attachment is why I naturally gravitate towards media where the music is treated with care. Whether it's a beautifully written soundtrack or a story built around music itself, I'm always drawn to it. And over time, I've started to notice something deeper. The way music and tragedy seem to walk hand in hand. In La La Land and Whiplash, music is the story. In Your Lie in April and Given, it's the emotional lifeline that carries characters through grief. The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 use music not just as ambience, but as memory, trauma, and love. Pieces of identity that linger long after people are gone. And then there's Arcane, where music transforms entire scenes into emotional punches, letting us feel a character's tragedy even when no words are spoken. It's not a coincidence that these stories resonate so strongly with people. I'll never forget the first time I watched Your Lie in April. It made me realize just how short life really is, and how important it is to take advantage of the time we're given. It introduced me to classical music in a real way, and pulled me into an emotional spiral I wasn't expecting. All of these moments come to a head when you ask the question, why is music so closely tied to emotion? And more specifically, why does it so often underscore pain, loss, and tragedy? To some, music is just noise, simply words over sounds and nothing more. But for many of us, it's something far deeper. It's a language of emotion, one we use to say the things we can't put into words. When sadness hits, we reach for songs that mirror it. When we feel joy, we seek out something bright, something alive. When we need to focus, we turn to wordless melodies, lo-fi, classical, film scores that speak without ever interrupting our thoughts. This has always been the role of music. Even in ancient tragedies like Oedipus Rex, music, often sung by chorus lines, carried the emotional weight of the story. Today, it hasn't changed. A film like Interstellar can strip away everything but a piano motif, and in doing so, make an entire scene feel infinite, fragile, and human all at once. Because music isn't just background noise, it's its own character. One that speaks when we can't, holds us when grief sets in, and somehow carries us through heartbreak when nothing else can. And maybe that's why the most powerful stories, anime, films, and even video games, don't just show tragedy, they play it. They use music as the most human way to express the things that we can't say out loud. Grief, regret, and everything we've lost. This is where music and tragedy meet, and it's where so many of the most unforgettable stories are born. When we have no one to turn to, no one to understand us, we often turn to music. Music has a way of making us feel seen and heard without ever being in the same room as another person. We say nothing to the music, yet somehow it speaks back in exactly the way we need to hear. Your Lie in April shows how grief can freeze a person's life, and how music, the very thing that Kousei thought had broken him, was what brought him back to life. After years of emotional trauma from his strict mother, her death pushes Kousei into a complete shutdown. His world turns colorless, and in his mind, even the sound of the piano disappears. He quits playing altogether, convinced music is too painful to face, and yet he can't stay away from it. He still transposes songs, shadows the keys of tunes he hears, and quietly writes music he'll never play. Deep down, the piano is still calling him back. That call is answered in the form of Kaori and her violin. Her relentless push for Kousei to perform with her forces him to confront his pain head-on. Through music, he begins to process years of grief and trauma, turning what was once a source of heartbreak into his path to healing. His final performance becomes a farewell letter to Kaori and a release from the weight he'd carried for so long. And that's the power of music. It becomes a translator for emotion. When words are too heavy to say out loud, melodies take over and speak for us. Given takes grief and turns it inward. Mafuyu, one of the main characters, is drowning in the aftermath of his boyfriend Yuki's suicide. The grief is so heavy that he can't even put it into words. He walks through life quiet, almost hollow, carrying Yuki's old guitar but never really playing it. When Mafuyu joins a band, he's given an outlet he didn't know he needed. At first he struggles to even articulate how he feels, but the music becomes his voice. The turning point comes during their first live performance, where Mafuyu debuts his original song, Fuyu no Hanashi. The lyrics are raw, an emotional outpouring of grief and guilt. As he sings, it feels like years of silence finally break. This one performance doesn't just move the crowd, it changes him. It's the first time he's been able to truly process what happened and start moving forward. In Given, music isn't just an emotional tool, it's therapy. It becomes the language Mafuyu needed when ordinary conversation failed, proving that sometimes the most honest way to say I'm hurting is to sing it. In The Last of Us Part 2, music isn't about performance or ambition, it's about memory. Joel teaches Ellie how to play guitar, and their connection becomes defined by one song, Future Days by Pearl Jam. That song becomes their private language, a way of saying what words can't. Love, trust, and belonging are still alive in a world falling apart. When Joel is murdered, the guitar becomes Ellie's way of holding on to him. Throughout the game, playing guitar is her method of processing grief. It's not about sounding good, it's about remembering the person she's lost. But revenge costs her everything. By the end, after choosing to let Abby live and returning to an empty home, Ellie tries to play Joel's song one last time. Missing fingers from her final fight meant she physically can't form the chords. The sound that once connected her to Joel is gone, and with it, her last tie to him. The Last of Us Part 2 shows the cruel side of music and tragedy. When it's tied to memory, losing it feels like losing the person all over again. And then there's Arcane, a story that uses music not as a decoration, but as an emotional current beneath its most pivotal moments. The right song doesn't just accompany the scene, it defines it. When Jinx lights the flare and guns for hire, calling out to Vi, the music isn't loud or frantic. It's aching, hesitant, filled with the weight of years lost. It's not just a reunion, it's a cry for the bond they once had, unsure if it can be restored. In the Season 1 finale, What Could Have Been plays as Jinx finally lets go of Powder completely, embracing the identity she's been running towards and away from all at once. The song turns her choice into a eulogy, not just for Powder, but for the life she could have lived. Remember Me scores Vander's transformation into Warwick, a moment of irreversible loss. The music doesn't fight the violence of the scene, it mourns it, as if the man Vander once was is being buried note by note. Even Isha's song, though far quieter, is devastating in its own way, a reminder that in Arcane, music isn't just background sound, it's the pulse of the story's grief. These scenes work not because of what's said, but because the music says it for us. In Arcane, the soundtrack doesn't just support the tragedy, it becomes part of it. Music is the invisible thread tying these stories together. A language that reaches past words, past even the characters themselves, and speaks directly to us. Each of these worlds uses it differently, but they all arrive at the same truth. Music gives shape to emotions that would otherwise go unspoken, and it offers us a way to process the weight of what we've just seen. But grief in music doesn't only live in loss. Sometimes it's born in the very act of chasing the music itself, and sacrifices, the obsessions, and the dreams that demand more than we can afford to give. Ambition in art demands sacrifice, often so much that the artist loses themselves before ever reaching their goal. While they're gifted with the drive to achieve what others can't, it's common for them to dive so deep into their craft that it begins to swallow them whole. Music becomes a double-edged sword, pushing them forward but always at a cost. Their relationships, their passion, sometimes even themselves. Their pursuit of greatness can place an artist on the highest stage or burn them out before they ever see the light. Whiplash is the perfect example. Fletcher's mentorship isn't guidance, it's control, abuse disguised as inspiration. Andrew is forced past every physical and mental limit he has. His desperation to prove himself leaves him literally bleeding over the music. In chasing perfection, he loses his closest relationships, both old and new. His mental health collapses and his sense of identity shrinks until there's nothing left outside of the drum kit. In his eyes, the ending is triumph, a final performance where he matches Fletcher's demands note for note, but it's a victory stripped bare of humanity. Jazz drumming doesn't belong to Andrew anymore. Andrew belongs to jazz drumming. At first, Andrew allows himself to explore something beyond music, a relationship with Nicole. But as much as he cares for her, he loves the art more. In the end, he chooses music over her. La La Land mirrors this sacrifice. Mia and Sebastian's relationship is built on shared struggle, but their individual ambitions eventually push them apart. They're perfect for each other, but not for the lives their dreams demand. And not all sacrifices are as visible as a breakup. Some are quieter, but just as costly. Sleep is traded for practice, health is worn down by stress and overwork, mental well-being erodes under the constant weight of expectation. Andrew and Sebastian both endure sleepless nights chasing their craft. Andrew quite literally pours blood, sweat, and tears into his skill, and in every case, burnout lurks just behind the curtain. These sacrifices don't get celebrated. They aren't framed as milestones. They're silent, invisible foundations that hold up personal tragedy. Some artists aren't driven by the pursuit of perfection alone. They're driven by time. Tick Tick Boom tells the story of Jonathan Larson, a struggling composer in New York who feels the clock constantly ticking in his head. Every moment spent away from the piano is a moment wasted, and every song unfinished feels like failure. Jonathan's obsession with making something meaningful comes at a cost. His relationships suffer, his girlfriend Susan needs more than scraps of attention he can give, and his best friend Michael begins to drift away. Even his own well-being falls apart under the weight of looming deadlines, self-imposed or not. He pushes himself so relentlessly that when one project fails, it feels like a personal collapse. What makes Jonathan's story so tragic is that he understands the cost. He knows he's burning through his health, his love, and his stability, but to him, the greater tragedy would be to leave nothing behind. In his eyes, not creating is worse than the pain of creating. It's the artist's paradox. The very thing that keeps him alive is the same thing that's tearing his life apart. Not every story of ambition ends with recognition. In Inside Llewyn Davis, the tragedy isn't burnout from success. It's the exhaustion of chasing a dream that never arrives. Llewyn is a folk singer in 1960s New York. He has talent, but in a world flooded with music, talent isn't enough. Llewyn pours himself into his songs, but they don't lift him out of his situation. He sacrifices stability, relationships, and any semblance of security, all for a career that refuses to meet him halfway. By the end, he's in the same place he started, playing at the same clubs, singing the same songs, watching others move forward while he stays stuck. Many times we've seen the artist become so engulfed in their craft that it stops becoming something they create, and instead becomes something that owns them. Ambition pulls them down a path of raw desire to embody the art itself, but in doing so, they trap themselves. The loss of balance between life and music turns what was once passion into a prison, funded by the pursuit of perfection. Music is often seen as healing, but when healing twists into obsession, it becomes abuse, and in the end, it consumes you. For some, music's tragedy isn't the loss of someone they love, it's the slow disappearance of themselves. Their art becomes their entire identity and everything else fades away. But ambition isn't the only kind of tragedy music can create. Sometimes the pain isn't in what's lost individually, but in what's lost between two people. The next tragedy lies not in the pursuit of perfection, but in the love stories that music both brings together and inevitably tears apart. Even in real life, music brings people together. Festivals, concerts, jazz bars, intimate venues, we gather around sound because it makes us feel connected. You could say people live for music, but in stories like these, music doesn't just connect two people. It becomes the marker of the moment they drift apart, a crystal that holds both the beginning and the end of love. In La La Land, Sebastian's passion for jazz becomes the spark that draws Mia in. She loves art in a different form, acting, but the fire they both share for their craft builds a relationship founded on creativity and dreams. His ambition is to open a jazz club, hers is to become a successful actress. Their bond is built on a common language, music, and it all starts with the piano. City of Stars becomes the theme of their romance, a song so simple it almost feels fragile, yet it carries the weight of their entire relationship. Sebastian first sings it alone, reflecting on the possibility of love. Mia takes the next verse and it grows into something shared. When they sing it together, it feels like a dream realized. But like their relationship, the song is fleeting. By the end, it becomes an echo of what could have been, a melody that foreshadows its own heartbreak. The ending sequence captures this perfectly. Sebastian plays their theme, and Mia imagines an alternate life, the one where ambition didn't separate them, the one where love triumphs. Music becomes the vessel for a life unlived, a fantasy of what they could have had together. But the song ends, and so does the dream. Their ambition survived, but their love didn't. The tragedy of La La Land isn't that it makes you cry, it's that it feels like watching a heart quietly break. By the end, you're left with an emptiness, knowing that the music gave them love, but it also demanded its price. What remains is the song, not the relationship, an artifact of the love they once shared. A Star is Born tells a story where music is both salvation and destruction. Jackson, a successful musician drowning in alcoholism, discovers Allie performing La Vie en Rose in a bar. Captivated, he brings her into his world. Their connection blooms into love through collaboration, most memorably with Shallow, a performance that becomes Allie's breakthrough and the heart of their relationship. But the fame is unkind. As Allie rises, Jackson falls. The stage that once united them becomes the same place that drives them apart. His addiction deepens, his shame grows, and he begins to see himself not as her partner, but as her burden. In the end, his love for Allie pushes him to do the irreversible, stepping away so that she can keep rising without him. Allie's farewell performance of I'll Never Love Again becomes the closing note of their story. Music, once the spark that brought them together, transforms into a funeral hymn for everything they had built. Every note she sings becomes a reminder of love and loss, a sound that immortalizes their relationship even as it buries it. The tragedy in A Star is Born is that the music is both their first hello and their last goodbye. In La La Land, music becomes an echo of what could have been, a dream unlived. In A Star is Born, it becomes the vessel for grief, love remembered only in song. Both stories show how music immortalizes relationship, but only as fragments, as artifacts of something no longer there. In the end, the music survives even when the love doesn't. For most of us, music is a way of holding on, to people, to moments, to memories. But sometimes tragedy isn't in the song itself, it's in the silence that follows. When music stops, it feels like the expression itself has died. In The Last of Us Part 2, music isn't about performance or ambition, it's about memory. Joel gives Ellie a guitar and teaches her how to play, a small act of love in a world defined by loss. Their bond becomes tied to a single song, Future Days by Pearl Jam. For Joel, teaching Ellie to play is his way of leaving something behind. For Ellie, learning to play is her way of keeping him close. The guitar becomes their shared language, a way of saying what words can't. Love, trust, belonging. When Joel is murdered, the guitar becomes Ellie's lifeline to him. Every time she plays, it's an act of remembrance. The strings carry the weight of her grief, her anger, her desperate need for closure. But as Ellie spirals deeper into revenge, the very thing that once grounded her begins to slip away. By the game's end, after she chooses to let Abby live, Ellie returns home alone. The house is empty, her family is gone, and when she picks up the guitar to play Joel's song one last time, she can't. She's lost 2 fingers in her final fight, and the chords just don't come together. What was once a symbol of love is now a symbol of everything she's lost. In that moment, the music dies with the relationship. Ellie hasn't just lost Joel, she's lost the only way she had left to keep him alive in her memory. Arcane carries a similar weight in how it uses music as both connection and farewell. When Jinx lights the flare and guns for hire, the music swells with fragile hope. It's not just a signal, it's a plea to Vi. Remember me, find me, don't let me be alone. But as the flare burns out, so does the moment of connection, leaving only silence and the distance between them. The final episode of Season 1 makes this even clearer. As What Could Have Been plays, we watch fractures deepen and futures collapse. Jinx, Vi, and Caitlyn sit at the same table, but no words are exchanged. The music becomes the voice of everything left unsaid. By the time the scene ends, Jinx has let go of Powder completely, and the song becomes a eulogy for the life she might have lived. Even Vander's transformation into Warwick is marked by song. Remember Me doesn't celebrate the moment, it mourns it, burying the man he once was as the monster takes his place. Arcane doesn't just show tragedy, it plays it, and when the song ends, it leaves you with the silence of what's been lost. Both stories remind us that music doesn't just carry grief, it can embody it. When the music stops, what remains is absence. Silence as heavy as a broken heart. In The Last of Us Part 2, Ellie loses the ability to play Joel's song. In Arcane, Vi loses Powder forever. In both, the tragedy isn't only in the lives that are gone, but in the voices that can no longer be heard. So why is it that sad music, tragic media, and stories of loss are so addictive to consume? If sadness is painful, why do we seek it out? It's because music transforms grief into something tangible, something we can see, something we can hear. It takes chaos and organizes it into melody, a shape we can replay, revisit, and eventually accept. Music doesn't solve pain, but it makes it knowable, it gives it form. Mafuyu and Given couldn't articulate his emotions after Yuki's death. Silence was his only language. But when he sings Fuyu no Hanashi, that silence is finally translated into sound. For us as an audience, hearing his grief is cathartic, because it gives shape to feelings we recognize within ourselves. Your Lie in April carries the same truth. Kousei's performances become his way of processing trauma in real time. Each note he plays is grief turned into sound, sorrow turned into something he can finally let out. As viewers, we feel relief through him because we know the weight of carrying pain too heavy for words. Through this, we can learn something. Sad music resonates differently than happy music. Happiness celebrates a moment, but sadness preserves it. Happy songs fade when the moment is gone, but sad ones remain like scars, painful but undeniable proof of what was once there. La La Land and A Star Is Born embody this. Their love stories end, but the music lingers. To hear those melodies again is to touch a wound that never fully healed. It hurts, but it reminds us that it mattered. And that's the power of music. Even when people are gone, the songs survive. A capsule of memory. Ellie in The Last of Us Part 2 loses the ability to play Joel's song, but the song still exists, even if only for us as players. It outlives her grief, and in doing so, lets us remember. In Arcane, What Could Have Been serves the same role, encapsulating everything unsaid in the finale. Long after the episode ends, the music remains, carrying the weight of loss when words can't. Sad music has a particular beauty to it, the ability to carry our pain for us. It provides a shoulder when we need one, and it allows us to revisit tragedy safely, on our own terms. Listening again isn't about reliving the sadness, it's about remembering what we survived. Stories like this have always drawn me in, partly because of my own musical background, but also because I've always loved reading between the lines. When music is treated with care, it becomes its own character, a living presence that makes the emotion on screen even more real. And maybe that's why we keep returning to them, because the music becomes the only way to hold on to what tragedy tries to take away. A memory, a feeling, a voice, a part of ourselves. So think about the songs that have carried you, the ones that walk with you through grief, because maybe those are the songs that we'll always remember for us. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know it's been a while since I posted, but it's been a busy few months. Let me know if you have anything you want me to make a video about specifically, and I'll make a note on it. Catch y'all in the next video.